Communication is really important. On the back end, what clients don't necessarily see is agents are communicating, attorneys are communicating. We're making sure everybody is on the same page because there's so many bits and pieces. Now, with real estate law, is there something specifically that, besides that story that you have shared, for someone who's looking to buy another property or things that they need to keep in place or need to keep in mind?
I think that it depends what is the purpose of your purchase. If it's a home for you, then you really need to make sure that you have made peace with all of the things that you don't like about the house. I think that's the hardest part for the buyers. We kind of operate in this world of 80%, meaning out of the 100% of things that you want, can we get you up to 70-80% of those things? I think that for yourself, you need to know that and then be happy with your purchase.
Welcome to Real Estate Talk with Tanya Flores. Today we are joined with Salvador Cicero, and I'm so excited because this man has been close to 20 years practicing in real estate law, immigration law, and business law. And today's conversation is going to be very helpful to you and your friends, I'm sure. So make sure you like and subscribe. We're gonna get right to it. Salvador, I'm so happy you're here today.
Of course, thank you for having me.
So it's been close to 20 years that you've been in real estate. You didn't start as an attorney.
I started as a diplomat after I finished law school, so I was not a private attorney.
What was it like being a diplomat? Why did you follow that field?
Well, I would have been I'm the fourth generation in my family to go into the field. My parents met working together at a consulate, so I grew up in that. My grandfather, my cousins, so it was kind of a natural progression, for me to do that.
You did some interesting law, very much geared around human rights work, right? While you were an attorney.
Well, when I started in the Foreign Service, I was here posted at the consulate in Chicago. And we did a lot of anti-death penalty work. We had to do investigations of DCFS because there was a lot of abuse of Mexican people. And I was here from 1998 through 2001. We did a lot of public art. Most of the public art that you see from Mexico, Benito Juarez, Flame of the Millennium, the Toltec head, we did that during that term. And then we bought the consulate on Ashland and Adams. That was my first real estate experience representing the government of Mexico. Obviously, we had local counsel that did the actual transaction, but yeah, that's how the very first transaction I had. And then from there, I moved into doing some work for human rights work in Mexico City, where first I ran the Directorate for Political Affairs under President Fox at the Foreign Ministry. And then I moved to do human rights work and human trafficking. And that's how I came back to the States. So for like close to 10 years, that's what I did. And then I switched to private practice.
That's great. I mean, you've always been very focused on helping the community and, with the human rights work.
Right.
Like I've heard some people, once you get into that line of work, it can get very dangerous, right? So now
it is dangerous. I've been shot at. It's very dangerous work if you're affecting people's interests. But the same when I was investigating the government, we also had people following us. So it just goes with the territory.
I hear you. So this type of law, I mean, you haven't gotten attempted, shooting in this.
Not anymore.
Okay.
It's dangerous to the extent that we are very committed to the public interest. We've always called ourselves a public interest law firm, even though we are private. We do pro bono work as well, and we always have had at least one or two every year had a pro bono case of different kinds, And we are very flexible with our fee schedule. We try to give people viable payment plans, and so there's little ways that we do to help, but it's important for us.
It's been almost 20 years that you've been practicing real estate law, and that's how we've been working together.
Correct.
Which I'm really grateful for.
Mm-hmm.
Also grateful that you've helped me in other matters, but you'll save that for another interview. So with real estate law, there's so many steps in the process, and working with you on so many transactions, I've been very grateful to see the way that you act as an attorney. Of course, you know your stuff, but you're such a great communicator, and you've been able to save several deals that I'm like, okay, that's it. We're ready to, you always find a little way, like loophole, and everybody feels like they're winning after they have a conversation with you. Yeah, you're welcome. For those that may not be familiar with what a real estate transaction entails, Talk to us around where you get involved in the real estate transaction and
Right.
how you play an important part.
The part that I think that we don't understand and that's confusing for people is like, okay, so why do I even need an attorney? Well, you need an attorney because there are legal steps and ultimately you need to be protected long term, right? You could have a situation where, which we've seen, where you purchase a house. I had a situation this year where somebody purchased a home and they let the seller stay there. And when they showed up to take possession, the house had completely flooded. And they had to spend almost $30,000 fixing that. And now we unfortunately have litigation over that, right? The only good thing is that we had an agreement in place and that they were responsible. And now they're going to have to, unfortunately, sellers be responsible for all those damage. So there can be bad situations, unfortunately. So when you have a real estate transaction, the realtor is going to do most of the negotiation at the beginning. The price, the this and that, you can keep the rugs or you can keep the patio furniture, whatever, right? And then the attorney comes in and the contracts have a 5-day period in which we can make changes. And we always have this, pre-fixed letters where we put in the basic things that everybody knows that we're going to be requesting. They're fairly standard. And then you're going to ask for some little extras. So the communication between the client, the realtor, and the attorney are important at this point in time. Especially if you're on the buyer side, you need to, once you have your inspection, which I always tell everybody, you buy a house, do an inspection. Spend $500 for, the $300,000 you're going to spend for the house, right? It's an investment in your peace of mind. Once we have those points, we negotiate those. And then the broker also negotiates those at another level. So you have two parts of your team working together.
Yeah, that communication is really important. With on the back end, what clients don't necessarily see is, like you had mentioned, right? The agents are communicating, attorneys are communicating. We're making sure everybody is on the same page because there's so many bits and pieces. Now, with real estate law, is there something specifically that, besides that story that you have shared, for someone who's looking to buy, another property, or things that they need to keep in place or need to keep in mind?
Well, I think that it depends what is the purpose of your purchase, right? If it's a home for you, then you really need to make sure that you have made peace with all of the things that you don't like about the house. I think that's the hardest part for the buyers, right? We kind of operate in this world of 80%, meaning out of the 100% of things that you want, can we get you up to 70-80% of those things? And if we get you those, can you live with those? I think that for yourself, you need to know that and then be happy with your purchase. And for the sellers, it's the same thing, right? The negotiation, sometimes people get bogged down as like, they want $5,000 for this or $10,000 for that. Yes, but you're making a transaction of $500,000. So $10,000 in the big scheme of things is a 2% thing. So it's like very small. So helping our clients understand the perspective beyond the legal portion, right? We always advocate for them. I think it's a
that is important. I mean, like any whether it's a business transaction, a relationship, like there's never that 100%. But as an attorney, you help people see some perspective, right? Like on really what's going on, because it can happen that we get quote unquote negotiation. They talk about like you can negotiate hard. It's going to be my way or the highway, right? Or like, okay, whatever you want, right? Or the other side of it.
I think a balance is important, right?
Yeah.
To me, what I try to do with every transaction is I want to help my client get the deal done, right? The people that are selling, they want to sell the property. The people who are buying want to be in this property. So what can I do to help my client get there? And also many times talk to my clients and I'm like, I want this, but it's going to cost me $3,000. Okay. Do you really want this house? Yes. Are you willing to lose the house over $3,000? Well, no. Okay. But I'm entitled to the $3,000. Absolutely. You're entitled to the $3,000. So strictly as an attorney, I would say if you have a right to those $3,000 because they didn't do the repairs, and you're going to have to spend it to repair something that the seller should repair, we can advocate for that. But that position doesn't help the client, because if we already know that they're not going to budge on that, and then my client is going to lose his $300,000 over $3,000, then I always say to my client, okay, but what makes you happy? What fulfills your needs? Just because you have a right to something, right? Unless it's an absolute deal killer, right? If I see that the house is not going to appraise and they want to offer $20,000 over asking price, then I'm going to be like, no, don't do that. We're not doing that, right? But if it's something like what I'm saying, where it's a compromise and you're giving up something that you really should be entitled to, but it gets you the house, that's your decision. And I'm going to advise you to make a decision, whatever works best for you.
Right. Yeah, that is important. Now, it takes a special skill set and mindset. And I want to say that anyone that's watching, whether they're, in business, work for corporate, right, whatever scenario, communication is so important. And not all of us know how to communicate. So when you put yourself to negotiate on the behalf of your client, what is that mindset that you have? Like, what is your thought process behind it that someone who's watching could benefit from, whether they're having a conversation with their wife, potential partner, a business transaction, or their boss who they totally do not see eye to eye with in the moment?
Well, the thing is, like, what is it that you're trying to accomplish? In order for me to properly advocate for the client, I need to understand what is their end goal and what are their parameters. If I don't understand the parameters, then I don't know what field of vision I have to make the negotiation, right? Do you want to get all these credits? Do you want to just have the house? Do you ultimately really don't care? And whatever I can get just like a cherry on top, that's great. So it depends what the situation is like. Or maybe I'm going to need more time. Or maybe I'm going to need 60 days instead of the typical 30 to 45. Can we accomplish that? If I understand that, then I can advocate, right? I also want to go back to something else that you asked me, which is how can you prepare for what the person needs, right? And for me to understand what your purpose, if you're going to invest in your first investment property, right? Not to buy the house for you want to invest. Let's organize an LLC to keep your personal affairs separate from the real estate investment, right? If I don't understand that about you, I cannot advise you properly. And if you as the agent don't right off the bat tell me, because maybe the client won't tell me that, but if you know that, it's very important that you tell me, oh, this is his first investment, it's not going to be for him, right? But we're going to, then okay, so let's look at these other options, because that's important.
That is, so communication. Yeah. There's never too much communication, unless you're a big ranter. Then that's different.
Well, unless you get detained by the police and you have the right to remain silent.
Oh my gosh.
Don't communicate.
Stand corrected, okay?
Yeah, only on that scenario.
Speaking of that, we know what's been going on in our country, and it's very unfortunate. A lot of our community has been scared with what's going on, and many of them, own property, they own real estate. So I've been getting a lot of calls around that. Like, what do I do to protect my property if something were to happen? And we're not saying this, to of course be fearful of it. We just want to make sure that if anyone needs this information, that you have access to it.
Right. Well, the first thing is not to freak out. If you have a person that's detained, find an attorney who can help you. If they have property, we'll prepare a power of attorney that they can execute. Now, if you know in advance that this could be a possibility, prepare your power of attorney in advance. And I think the biggest advice I can give to people right now, given here in the Chicagoland area and in Illinois, the fact that there are literally ICE agents just driving around the city, and it could happen to anybody. I have a friend just could pull over a friend of mine the other day. He's a U.S. citizen. And I want to tell you guys this story because it was from California and I-55, and they had a roadblock there. And the guy comes up to my friend and says to him in Spanish, hey, I asked him a question in Spanish. So my friend replies in Spanish. And they did have this whole conversation. And then my friend did everything wrong too. He's like, oh, you can look in the back, and sure, you want to search the car, go ahead. And like all the things you're supposed to say no to. And I said to him, like, dude, you're like third generation. Why are you talking in Spanish with this guy? Why didn't you just switch and say, hey, I'm a citizen? All you had to do was, I'm a U.S. citizen. Am I free to leave? That's what you should have said, right? And so that's the situation. But knowing that this is going on in our community, prepare yourself. This is the time to go pay $150 to an immigration lawyer and sit down with them and figure out what needs to be done. And if you are in a situation where you know that you don't have much going for you in terms of relief, then that way he knows whenever, if you are, God forbid, detained, then you're going to get a voluntary departure if you can and just get out. I mean, otherwise you're going to be 6 months in jail just sitting there for no reason, knowing that you're going to lose your case anyway. So it's better to know in advance. So don't play the ostrich. You know how the ostrich puts its head in the sand and the lion still eats it? Yeah, don't do that.
Don't do that. You want to be proactive.
Yes, this is the time to be proactive. People are like, oh, but $150. Some people charge $300. It's not the point. The point is, this is the time to invest in yourself. This is the same mentality. The mentality is what's important.
Yes.
You left your country and you made it here
Yeah.
Invest that for your security. If you're afraid to go, do it on Zoom. We do consultations on Zoom all the time.
Yeah.
You don't even have to go to see the lawyer. We have technology now.
Exactly.
So invest that so you know exactly where you're standing. And if you are aware, like a power of attorney is only going to cost you $150. That's pretty much the standard rate. Some people charge less, some people do it for $50. So the point is, get it done now. So if it's needed, you have it.
And the purpose of the power of attorney is to do what? Like how will it
to act on your behalf.
Okay, for
To
anything.
act on your behalf. It could be anything. You can do a very general one,
right?
Which is like 11 pages long, and it lists all of your financial things and medical things and all that. You can also do a power of attorney for health, right? In case you get hospitalized. So you can do that, or you can do a very simple one-page power of attorney for property.
Okay.
When we do those, usually expire within 90 days, but
okay.
or 6 months we can make it. But the point is, they also don't last forever. You gotta kind of
renew
them.
Okay.
But the point is that once you have a power of attorney,
if
anything happens, then at least you have somebody to help you out.
Absolutely, that's great. Yeah, so definitely worth the time, not just wondering and sitting in fear. Definitely take action. Number 2, like for people who have, this is not so much related to real estate, but as an attorney, I'm sure you get this question a lot. What about people who have kids, right? And like now, person is detained, and like what happens to the kids?
Well, there's also guardianship documents. We have the Hispanic lawyers. We have some pro bono programs that you can reach out to us. If anybody ever has a question, I'm available to assist you. Even if it's not something we do, we can refer you, of course, to a friend who can help. But when it comes to the children, we have guardianship documents that are simple guardianship documents. You should identify somebody though. It's important to know who is the person that you want to have guardianship of your children, should you be detained, and should you have to leave the country. Now, this is another important point. If you don't have a passport for your children, this is the time to get it. So get it done, make sure that they have it, so if they were to need to leave with you to a different part of the world, they are prepared to do that more efficiently.
Absolutely, better to start early. This is great information. I'm sure that it's helping somebody that is watching this, and I am excited to continue to help more people in real estate because, despite what's going on, right? Like right now, in real estate, I have had some clients because of what's been going on that are like, oh my God, I'm not sure if I want to buy because of everything what's going on.
Right.
But then again, you're still continuing to build your wealth in real estate. I did have a conversation, actually. I just wanted to plug that in there because I was so happy. We had an annual review with the client.
Right.
And we were going over, they had purchased their property in 2021. And we were going, hey, how much did you put down to purchase the property? And the client's like $5,000 that they had put down because we were able to leverage grant programs. Right. I'm like, how much is your home worth now? We realized that over that time frame, they were able to increase their equity, $141,000. That was
wonderful.
That's like
that's unheard of,
an over 30% return. They of course had done some upgrades, and all of that, of course, helps in the grand scheme of things, right?
Of course.
Is there anything related to real estate law that I haven't asked you that someone needs to know that's watching this?
Well, I think the biggest issue I see for the immigrant community that may be watching us is that if you are in a situation where the house that you live in that you're paying for is not under your name because you put it in the name of a relative or a friend, that you correct that immediately. Because even if you're not deported, if anything happens to that person and they pass away suddenly, then there's not much you can do. Then you're in probate. So if you did that because maybe you didn't know that you could get an ITIN loan, or that was a situation that you thought that you were forced in, you should do what you can, or at least have a private contract. Many of the people that I know in this situation, they didn't even create a separate contract between themselves and that person, like a rent to own or something that can protect you. So it's very important you take steps to do that.
Yeah, definitely reach out to Salvador to find out what are the steps. Everything's confidential. There's zero judgment here. We're here to help you, right, and guide you and make sure you're protected. Now, I know you don't only do real estate law. You do business law. You also do immigration law. In the last interview when I had Roberto Arista, we were talking about having an A team and how important it is to make sure that as a business owner that you have, key players. And an attorney is one of those key people.
Mm-hmm.
So share with us, Salvador, what do you do besides the real estate? Like, what is it that you can help people with?
The three areas that we do in addition to real estate is corporate law, business law, immigration, and accidents. And I don't handle all the areas, right? People ask me, oh, you do everything? No, we don't do everything. But I do have a small army of attorneys that work with me that are of counsel or friends or whatever. So I have like, if you need a will, I can draft the will. But if you need a trust that's like properly drafted, I have an attorney that all she does is wills, trusts, and estates. So I find that because the dynamics of my clients are different, I had to create a little group of attorneys to assist me. I certainly represent people that are undocumented, but I also represent people that are business owners, right? And those business owners have issues with family law. They have issues with litigation. And so, within our real estate practice, we have a litigation arm, right? And if it's needed basic family law, we can do it in-house if it's an agreed situation, right? We also have somebody who can do the litigation if we need it, right? And we send it out to them. So I think the important thing for anybody that's watching is identify people that you trust, that are trustworthy, right? And that will guide you as best as they can for the best interest of your company or your family.
Trust is such a beautiful word. I think trust is so important in anything that we do, whether we're speaking to a financial advisor or we're establishing a new relationship. I know we talked about the business side, and I'd like to also get into the personal side, because at the end of the day, we're growing as individuals for ourselves and for our families, and we want you to continue to grow and expand. So I'm going to ask some questions here to Salvador, who's been courageous enough to share with us. So both you and I have something in common, Salvador. We are both divorced, which happily divorced, yes. I don't think that being divorced is being a failure. It's not a fail. It's a gift. It's a growth process. And for yourself, it doesn't always feel like that, especially not in the beginning.
No, it's difficult. I spent a lifetime preparing to be a diplomat. And when I was a diplomat, I was very successful as a diplomat. I went out first in my class like 3 times, right? And then I got brought here by the American Bar Association as a fellow, and then I got offered a job with the United Nations and the Organization of American States. And I didn't take it because of the time my wife was like, I'm not going with you, and you figure it out, and you're married to me, not the Foreign Service, right? And things continued. Not only did I not do that, we ended up getting divorced anyway, right? So that was difficult, but I did make peace with my change, right? Because I do have a beautiful daughter, and those of us who have children, and if you're watching us, if you have children, you understand this, that changes your perspective on life. And it's hard to reinvent yourself. It is very hard. It's taken me many years to learn the craft at the beginning, I worked with other lawyers who taught me how to do things here and there. And when I don't know something, I have other lawyers who can tell me and help me, because that's important too. You need to know your limitations, and you need to always have people that can assist you. But yeah, it's been a process. Now I am happily married again. There's been ups and downs, but that's life, right?
Absolutely. I mean, you gave yourself the opportunity to trust again. I'm going to interject on that moment where you were very excited about your diplomat career, right? You got married, right?
Yeah.
When we're thinking about marriage, I'm glad you're happily married, but something in retrospect that I didn't personally know. I found myself also of a similar situation where I got a job opportunity and my partner didn't really think that it was such a great idea, but I thought I would not take, even though I was very excited about it, just like yourself. I decided not to take that job opportunity because of love, right?
Right.
And I don't know if you would agree with this, but as we're reevaluating, different relationships and trusting again, there's a different perspective, right?
Yeah. I don't think that anything that I've done for love is a bad thing. I'm a big believer that what you do for the right reasons is okay.
Yeah, you think so?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because if I hadn't made that decision, I would not be sitting here with you. I would have never met my new wife. I would have never had the opportunity to truly help people through the years as I had by having my own firm in Chicago. It's a lot of work. I never intended to have to support myself, generate my own income, right? Which is always challenging, right? Because you depend on other people to hire you, or you can pay your bills. So there's a little bit of stress on that, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I never second guess any decision that was taken earnestly for love. I think that that's okay.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's it. I appreciate that perspective. You know, I don't think until now I really saw it like that. I do think that things are a gift, even if they're not as, you know, nice. But you know what? You're right. It's a appreciation for your decisions that you've made in the past.
And let me tell you something that's happened to me that's interesting. So here I am, you know, many years, 20 years ago, right? Having to take the bar exam after 8 years out of law school. That was a pain in the butt.
Really?
But I had been volunteering with the Hispanic lawyers. We have a program called JD Mentors. And my mentee put me in touch with all her friends, and I studied with her. I mentored her the whole year, and then at the end, she helped me pass the bar.
No way.
So,
that's awesome.
So that's another lesson there is always volunteer. You get a lot more than you put in. Always when you do the right thing. So that's lesson number one. Lesson number two. So I say, okay, fine, I'm going to open up the firm, and I'm going to do the international thing. I turn out the jobs. I also was considering a job at a large law firm, and I ran into a friend who was at that firm in a different city and was like, I already see you there. You don't want to go there? And I thought, you know what? It's $175,000 salary. And I thought, nobody's going to pay me that to sit on my butt, so maybe I'll go out on my own.
You just...
And I did that, and my ex-wife was not happy about it. She was like, what? You know, because I had... But see, to take the job here in Chicago, I had already taken a sizable pay cut from my salary in Mexico. I made a lot more money there.
Yeah.
Those of you who are familiar with Mexico, you know, you can actually make more money over there sometimes if you have certain expertise.
Yes.
So anyway, long story short, I said, fine, I'm going to try it. And we did okay the first year, and we've been able to support ourselves every year. So we've been very blessed that way. But what happened, I could never anticipate, is that about 6-7 months out, the Senate of Mexico called me and said, hey, we want you to invite you to help us with this project. So I went down and I helped them. And they're the same people who had offered me the job before saw me and said, hey, we want you to go to Colombia. And we went to Colombia. They said, we'll make an exception for you. We want you on our team. And I work with them. Even though I had the firm, I still got to travel to 19 different countries.
Wow, that's awesome.
So, you know, they say the Lord works in mysterious ways, right?
Yeah.
And so when you make a decision, sometimes that decision doesn't really count against you. At the time, I could have never thought that, right?
Yeah.
But then this other thing materialized, and I was able to do not exactly what I wanted to do, but it was a little bit kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then, of course, after traveling over 7 years to 19 different countries, you're like, thank you, that was great. Thanks for the opportunity, but I don't anymore, right?
I was just about to ask you, like, if that was amazing or not, but it sounds like you got tired. Though, likely learned a lot. Like, is there something that you think you've learned through all that traveling?
Of course. I mean, to have the opportunity to see other places makes you value what you have. It makes you value other places. Like, I now I look at Mexico so differently because I've been in countries where they say, well, this isn't a developed big country like Mexico, which would sound ludicrous to an American, right?
Really?
But we forget that we live in the most technologically advanced country on earth.
Really?
Right?
You think so?
Yeah, we're one of the top 5 for sure. I mean, maybe Japan, they may have some more computer stuff, but the services, everything here, and most everything works. And if you compare Mexico to it, they're like, well, they're about 80%. But that 80% that Mexico may have versus the U.S. is exponentially more than most places in the world.
Really?
But I didn't realize this until I went south. So that's what I'm saying. I mean, you know, you learn.
You learn by traveling.
Yeah, and I also lived in Europe and traveled throughout Europe as well. And comparatively, Mexico's pretty comparable.
It is pretty comparable.
So you see that, right? Brazil's pretty good. Argentina only in Buenos Aires.
Oh, really?
But then you go to other places and they have some infrastructure, but once you leave the big cities, you know, they don't really have running water, they don't have electricity. And in Mexico, even the pueblitos have that, right? So haphazardly, but they do.
Yeah, the hospitals, it's a completely different.
That gives you a different perspective.
Yeah.
You know, and then you also realize, you know, you could live somewhere else too.
You could.
You could.
You could live somewhere else too. That's true. That's a really good perspective. What is it that keeps you grounded, Salvador, as a person? You know, you shared some really good life principles, but what do you go back to time and time after again to build and expand your life?
Well, you know, everybody is different as to what guides them and grounds them, right? I have a responsibility as a father, and my teenager daughter and I have a loving but contentious relationship.
Oh, explain.
Like, well, she's 15 years old, so everything's a problem.
Really?
How was your day, honey? Horrible. It's like,
No.
she's not the sunny-go-lucky girl she was, before. And so helping her through that, I am very thankful that I have a wonderful wife who advises me how to be a better father to my daughter, even though she's the stepmom, because she has an outside look, and then she's a woman. I've never been through what it's like to have to deal with cramps and hormonal changes and all that. So I'm saying having people in your corner. So I am very blessed to have my wife and to have my daughter, and that kind of keeps me going. I have to work hard. You got to do that. My clients also inspire me. Yeah. Especially with what's going on now. Yes. I find family members, I almost feel like we're friends now because we talk so much and back and forth, and they're giving me the documents, and they fill out all the stuff I ask them to fill out, and it's like a team effort, Yeah. Another thing is my fellow lawyers. I'm very lucky to be a member of the Hispanic Lawyers, LULAC, all these organizations that are devoted to our people. Like I was president of the Hispanic Lawyers in 2011, right? So one of the old fogies in there, right? And I am amazed to see how they have stepped up. We have programs we're working on. We have a task force that's working on what's going on. We have people on site that will go help. We have pro bono cases. We have a habeas corpus. Everybody came together, given the crisis in our city, to help. And that is like when you see other people that are on board, like we had a call last night. There must have been 50 or 60 people on this call. Amazing. And everybody was like, how can I help? And so that's inspiring to me as a professional, because it's difficult. What we do is difficult. It's been the immigration side, right? Yeah. So that's important. And on the real estate side, people think this is silly. This is the happiest part of my practice. Yeah, really? I love doing real estate because it's the one area where I get to see the person that's happy that they sold and they're buying something else, or they're retiring, or they're buying their first home. It truly is that part of life where you're like, we're helping somebody do something that makes them happy. Yeah. Right? Versus taking them out of a crisis. Yeah. Which is important, and I love doing that too. I'm committed to that. But I love the real estate portion because of that. That's why I do so much real estate. Oh my gosh, it is so true. I'm thinking about two happy moments right now. The other day, one of my clients sent me a picture of their dog, like playing with the toy or looking outside the yard. It's like little things like that. Or like the new deck. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy for you. Yeah. Well, and also, and for me, another thing, lastly, I think is faith, right? Yes. Faith and having a sense of a moral compass. You don't have to believe in God. I happen to, right? And I happen to go with my faith with my wife, and we're Muslim. I like to mention that since people find that interesting. I'm Mexican Muslim, so I converted, right? Because that's our household is Muslim, right? Wow. But my formation was Catholic. Yes. Right? So it's actually very similar. People are similar. Well, I didn't think that either until I learned about it, right? But the point is that I have that very present in my life, right? And that's also a source of always solace for me and contentment, and that's a very active part. And it keeps me grounded because one of the pillars of this religion is you have to help people. That's a requirement you have. And before, when I was growing up, in Latin America, there was a movement called the Theology of Liberation, if you remember this, with the Catholics. I do. And I grew up surrounded by Jesuit people that were always doing things and helping people and working with the youth. So faith in my life has always shown me to do that. And I had friends who don't believe, who also had a very strong moral compass. So that is the part that's important. You have to believe in something, whatever it is you believe, and you have to also go for that, because I'll always give you a sense of you getting it done, especially when it's hard. When it's hard, you have to have those moments of introspection and say, okay, what comes next? And how can I find that strength? So family, faith, and conviction on the things that you believe in. I think those three things put together get you to where you need to be. That was beautiful. I feel so energy and inspired. One of the things that, I value is precisely that value of extending yourself, the humanity that you bring to the transactions that you do. And that's what makes the world go round when we, instead of looking, what's in it for me, when you think about how can I serve, and you ask God,
God, how do you want me to serve today? So as we wrap up this podcast, we really extend invitation for you to ask yourself today, how can I serve? What can I do for a fellow person that's not going to give me anything back? It's not going to come back. You're just extending yourself, right? No interest.
Right.
I think that's beautiful. Thank you, Salvador.
Yes.
I appreciate working with you, and I appreciate you being on the show today.
Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. And make sure you, of course, like and subscribe, because that's how we're going to grow and extend these positive messages and information. And share it with a friend. Send it on the DM. Make sure you reach out to Salvador if you have any real estate questions or any law questions. As you know, he's very well connected, so he will connect you to someone if it's not
Happy
you.
to help if I can. Bye.